Have you ever watched someone risk everything to save a complete stranger, only to lose everything they had in return? Imagine working a minimum wage job, barely able to pay your rent, and then, in a single moment, making a decision that costs you your career. Most people would call it the worst mistake of your life. But what if losing that job was actually the first step toward a destiny no one could have imagined? Stay with me, because this true-to-life emotional story will take you from heartbreak and injustice to a finale so unbelievable that it left an entire city speechless. Welcome to Heartnest Stories, where every story reminds us that kindness always finds its way back. If you enjoy emotional, inspiring stories filled with unexpected twists, make sure to subscribe and join our family. Now let's begin. The automatic doors slid open with a soft whoosh as Maya Johnson stepped into the Brightmart superstore at exactly 6:47 on a rainy Tuesday morning. She had been working as a cashier there for almost 4 years, and despite never missing a shift, she was still earning just enough to survive. At 28 years old, Maya lived in a tiny apartment on the south side of Chicago with her grandmother, Evelyn. Every dollar she earned disappeared almost as quickly as it arrived. Rent, electricity, groceries, medication for her grandmother, bus fare, and the occasional repair bill left almost nothing behind. Yet every customer who walked through checkout lane number 6 was greeted with the same warm smile. "Good morning. How are you today? I hope you have a wonderful afternoon." Some people ignored her. Some barely looked up from their phones. Others smiled back. But Maya never changed. Her grandmother used to tell her, "Kindness isn't something you give because people deserve it. You give it because it's who you choose to be." Those words had become the foundation of Maya's life. What Maya didn't know was that this ordinary rainy Tuesday would become the most important day she would ever live. Across town, 80-year-old Robert Harrison adjusted the collar of his navy blue jacket before climbing into the back seat of a black luxury sedan. Robert wasn't just another wealthy retiree. He had spent 40 years building Harrison Technologies into one of America's largest engineering companies before handing control to his son, Daniel Harrison, nearly a decade earlier. Although retired, Robert hated being treated like someone fragile. That morning, he insisted on dismissing his driver halfway through the trip. "I'll walk the rest of the way," he laughed. The driver protested. "It's raining, sir. I've survived worse than rain." Robert smiled and stepped onto the sidewalk carrying nothing more than an umbrella and a small shopping list. He wanted to buy flowers for his late wife's grave himself. It was something he did every month. No assistance, no security, no publicity, just love that never faded. By noon, the rain had grown heavier. Inside Brightmart, customers rushed through checkout lanes trying to escape the storm. Maya scanned groceries with practiced speed. "Paper or plastic? Would you like your receipt? Have a great day." Everything felt routine, until she noticed an elderly man slowly pushing a shopping cart near the pharmacy section. He looked pale. His hands trembled. He paused every few steps, pressing one hand against his chest. Maya frowned. Most people continued shopping without paying attention. She couldn't stop watching him. Something didn't feel right. Seconds later, Robert Harrison collapsed. The shopping cart rolled away. Glass flower vases shattered across the floor. A woman screamed. Several customers froze. Others simply stared. Someone pulled out a phone, not to call 911, but to start recording. For one terrifying second, nobody moved. Then Maya ran. She didn't ask permission. She didn't think about company policy. She vaulted around her register and dropped beside the elderly man. "Sir, can you hear me?" No response. His breathing was shallow. His face had turned gray. Years earlier, Maya had taken a CPR certification class through a community volunteer program after her grandfather passed away from a heart attack. She prayed she still remembered what to do. "Call 911, she shouted. Nobody moved. "I said call 911. Finally, a teenage customer grabbed his phone. Maya checked for a pulse. Weak. Dangerously weak. She began chest compressions exactly as she had been taught. 1, 2, 3. Around her, frightened shoppers whispered. Some cried. Others continued filming. Minutes felt like hours. Then Robert suddenly gasped. A tiny breath. Then another. The crowd erupted with relieved voices. Paramedics rushed inside moments later. One knelt beside Maya. "You kept him alive." Another nodded while attaching medical equipment. "If you hadn't started CPR immediately, he probably wouldn't have made it." Maya leaned back, exhausted. Her uniform was soaked from kneeling on the wet floor. Her hands trembled. She whispered a quiet thank you. She never even learned the old man's name. As paramedics wheeled Robert toward the ambulance, his eyes opened for only a brief second. His gaze met Maya's. He couldn't speak, but he managed the smallest grateful smile before losing consciousness again. Maya smiled back. Then she quietly returned to register number 6. She assumed the day would simply continue. She was wrong. 20 minutes later, the store manager, Richard Collins, stormed across the sales floor. His face burned with anger. Maya, my office. Now. Every employee nearby fell silent. Inside the office, Richard slammed the door. What were you thinking? Maya blinked. He needed help. You abandoned your register. He was dying. You left thousands of dollars of merchandise unattended. There were customers everywhere. You violated company procedure. I saved a man's life. Richard folded his arms. That's not your job. For several seconds, neither of them spoke. Finally, Richard opened a folder. I'm terminating your employment effective immediately. Maya stared at him. What? You heard me. I've worked here for 4 years. And today you chose to ignore company policy. I chose to save someone. You created liability. Tears filled Maya's eyes. So helping someone is against policy? Richard avoided the question. Turn in your badge. The tiny plastic name tag suddenly felt heavier than anything she'd ever held. For years. Gone in less than 5 minutes. Maya unclipped it from her uniform and placed it gently on the desk. Without another word, she walked out carrying only her purse. Rain poured outside. She stood under the gray sky with no job, no paycheck, and no idea how she would buy her grandmother's medication next week. She looked up into the storm and whispered, I hope he's alive. She wasn't thinking about herself. She was thinking about the stranger she'd never met. Across the city, inside one of Chicago's most advanced hospitals, doctors fought desperately to stabilize Robert Harrison. Outside the intensive care unit, his son Daniel Harrison arrived at a run, surrounded by executives, attorneys, and security personnel. The cardiologist stepped into the hallway. Your father survived because someone began CPR almost immediately. Daniel let out a shaky breath. Who saved him? The doctor glanced at the report. A cashier. Daniel looked surprised. What's her name? The doctor lowered the clipboard. We don't know much yet. And at that exact moment, a chain of events quietly began that would soon change Maya Johnson's life forever. Maya sat quietly on the crowded city bus, staring through the rain-speckled window as Chicago blurred into streaks of gray. Around her, people scrolled through their phones, laughed with friends, or hurried toward another ordinary afternoon. To them, it was just another Tuesday. For Maya, it felt like her entire world had collapsed. She replayed the manager's words over and over. You're terminated. Not because she had stolen. Not because she had lied. Not because she had failed to do her job. She had lost everything because she refused to watch a man die. She reached into her purse and counted the cash inside. $43. That was all she had until next week's paycheck. A paycheck that would never come. She quietly folded the bills back into her wallet and closed her eyes. When she finally reached her apartment building, the familiar smell of old brick and worn carpet greeted her. Apartment 3B had been home since she was 19. The front door creaked open before she even reached for the key. There you are, her grandmother Evelyn said with a warm smile. You're home early. Maya forced herself to smile back. Yeah, they closed my register. Evelyn immediately noticed something was wrong. What happened? For a moment Maya considered lying. Instead, tears began rolling down her cheeks. I got fired. Evelyn wrapped her granddaughter in a hug before asking another question. No lectures. No panic. Just love. After listening to everything that had happened, Evelyn gently wiped Maya's tears. You did the right thing. But we need money. We'll figure it out. What if we can't? Evelyn smiled softly. When your grandfather came home from Vietnam, we had $11 to our name. We survived that. We'll survive this. Maya wanted to believe her. But medicine wasn't free. Neither was rent. Across the city, Daniel Harrison stood beside his father's hospital bed. Robert was finally awake. His voice was weak. There was a young woman. Daniel leaned closer. The cashier. Robert nodded. She saved me. We're finding her. Robert squeezed his son's hand. No. Daniel looked confused. No. Don't just thank her. Robert paused to catch his breath. Change her life. Daniel had spent 20 years leading billion-dollar negotiations. He had acquired companies on 3 continents. He had closed deals worth more money than most people could imagine. Yet those 3 words from his father felt heavier than every contract he had ever signed. Change her life. Daniel turned toward his assistant. I want every security camera from that store. Yes, sir. I want every witness interviewed. Yes, sir. And I want to know exactly who she is. Within hours, Harrison Technologies' legal team contacted Brightmart headquarters requesting surveillance footage. The request immediately reached corporate executives. By Wednesday morning, Brightmart's regional vice president was reviewing the footage personally. The video showed everything. The elderly customer collapsing. Customers standing frozen. Several recording with their phones. Maya sprinting from her register. Chest compressions. Paramedics arriving. The vice president watched the footage twice. Then a third time. He slowly removed his glasses. Who fired this employee? A nervous regional manager answered. Store manager Richard Collins. Why? He cited abandonment of assigned duties. The vice president stared at him in disbelief. She saved a customer's life. Silence filled the room. Meanwhile, Richard Collins had no idea corporate executives were reviewing every decision he had made. He walked confidently through the store, believing he had simply enforced policy. Late that afternoon, his office phone rang. Richard Collins speaking. This is corporate. His confident smile disappeared. We need you in headquarters tomorrow morning. Of course. Bring every document related to yesterday's incident. Richard swallowed. Is something wrong? We'll discuss it tomorrow. The line disconnected. For the first time in 20 years, Richard felt nervous. Elsewhere, Maya spent the evening updating her resume. She applied for grocery stores, coffee shops, restaurants, bookstores, retail chains, anything. Each application ended the same way. We'll contact you. Hours passed. No replies. Near midnight, her phone buzzed. An unknown number. She hesitated before answering. Hello. Miss Maya Johnson? Yes. My name is Karen Wells. I'm calling from Harrison Technologies. Maya frowned. I'm sorry. I think you have the wrong number. No, ma'am. We're looking for the cashier who saved Mr. Robert Harrison yesterday. Maya froze. He survived? He did. A tear slipped down her cheek. Oh, thank God. Karen smiled on the other end of the line. He would like to thank you personally. That's not necessary. I'm afraid he insists. Maya laughed nervously. I don't even own clothes nice enough to meet billionaires. Karen chuckled. I don't think he'll care what you're wearing. Maya hesitated. I'll think about it. Before hanging up, Karen added one final sentence. Miss Johnson. Yes. Mr. Harrison also learned that you lost your job because you saved his life. Silence. We're very sorry. After the call ended, Maya placed her phone on the kitchen table. Evelyn looked up from her crossword puzzle. Who was that? The man I saved. Is he all right? Yes. Evelyn smiled. I knew he would be. They want to meet me. You should go. I don't belong around people like that. Evelyn gently held Maya's hand. My dear, kindness belongs everywhere. The next morning, social media exploded. One customer who had recorded the emergency uploaded the video with a simple caption. Cashier fired after saving elderly man's life. Within hours, the video had been viewed hundreds of thousands of times. Then millions. Comments poured in. She deserves a medal. I'd rather shop where employees save lives than protect cash registers. Fire the manager, not the cashier. Find this woman. National news stations picked up the story. Morning talk shows debated whether company policies had gone too far. Brightmart's public relations department entered crisis mode. Stock analysts began asking questions. Customers threatened boycotts. By noon, Brightmart CEO personally called an emergency board meeting. Meanwhile, Richard Collins arrived at corporate headquarters wearing his best suit. He expected a routine discussion. Instead, he found 6 executives waiting inside a conference room. A large television displayed paused security footage. The vice president folded his hands. Richard. Yes, sir. Would you like to explain why the woman on this screen was fired for saving a customer's life? Richard immediately straightened his tie. She abandoned her assigned register. The room remained silent. One executive leaned forward. Do you believe she should have allowed him to die? Richard's face turned pale. I didn't say that. But your decision suggests exactly that. Richard suddenly realized the situation was far worse than he had imagined. At that exact moment, Maya was completely unaware that the entire country was beginning to learn her name, and that the next 24 hours would transform her life in ways she never could have dreamed. The next morning, Maya stood in front of the only full-length mirror in her apartment, smoothing the wrinkles from a simple navy blue dress she had worn only twice before. It wasn't expensive. In fact, she had bought it 3 years earlier from a clearance rack for $39. But it was clean, neatly pressed, and the nicest thing she owned. "You look beautiful," Evelyn said with a proud smile. "I look nervous." "You are nervous." Maya laughed softly. "I've never even met a millionaire, Grandma." "Then don't think about meeting a billionaire. Think about meeting a man whose life you helped save." Those words settled her racing heart. At exactly 10 o'clock, a black luxury SUV stopped outside the apartment building. The driver stepped out, opened the rear door, and politely greeted her. "Miss Johnson." "Yes. I'm here on behalf of Mr. Harrison." The drive across Chicago was quiet. Maya watched the skyline pass by, wondering why someone as powerful as Robert Harrison wanted to meet someone like her. When they arrived, she was escorted into one of the city's most prestigious private hospitals. Nurses smiled warmly as she walked through the hallways, and several employees recognized her from the viral video. One whispered, "That's her." Another quietly said, "She's the cashier." Maya lowered her eyes, uncomfortable with the attention. Outside Robert Harrison's room, Daniel Harrison stood waiting. He was tall, composed, and dressed in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit. Everything about him reflected confidence. Yet the moment he saw Maya, his expression softened. He stepped forward and extended his hand. "Miss Johnson." "And Mr. Harrison." "No," he said with a gentle smile. "Please call me Daniel." She shook his hand. "Thank you for coming." "I should be thanking you." Daniel opened the hospital room door. Robert Harrison was sitting up in bed, looking much stronger than he had in the supermarket. The moment he saw Maya, his eyes filled with gratitude. "There she is." Maya smiled shyly. "I'm so happy you're all right." Robert motioned for her to come closer. "You gave me another chance to see my family. I only did what anyone should do." Robert chuckled. "No." He slowly shook his head. "Most people didn't." Maya remembered the phones pointed toward him while he struggled to breathe. She didn't respond. Robert reached for her hand. "I don't remember much after collapsing." "You don't have to. But I remember your face." His voice became emotional. "I remember someone refusing to give up on me." Maya felt tears forming. "I couldn't just stand there." For several moments, none of them spoke. Finally, Daniel broke the silence. "Miss Johnson." "Yes." "My father has told me something 3 times since yesterday." "What is that?" "He says you didn't just save his life." Daniel smiled. "You reminded him that compassion still exists." Maya looked away, embarrassed. "I don't think I did anything extraordinary." Robert laughed. "That's exactly why you did." Daniel then placed a small envelope on the bedside table. "This is only a small gesture of appreciation." Maya looked at it, but didn't touch it. "I can't accept money. It's not payment. It still doesn't feel right." Robert smiled knowingly. "Then don't open it until you get home." Reluctantly, Maya agreed. They spent nearly an hour talking, not about business, wealth, or success, but about family, childhood memories, favorite books, and Robert's late wife, Margaret. For the first time since losing her job, Maya genuinely smiled. As she prepared to leave, Robert stopped her. "One more thing." She turned around. "I heard what happened at your workplace." "It's all right." "No." Robert's voice became firm. "It isn't." She smiled gently. "I'll find another job." Robert exchanged a quiet glance with Daniel. Neither of them said another word. But Maya sensed they were thinking about something. Something much bigger. Back at Harrison Technologies headquarters, Daniel entered the executive conference room. The company's leadership team was already waiting. Without sitting down, Daniel spoke. "I've made a decision." Everyone listened carefully. "I want every employee in this company certified in CPR and emergency response within 6 months." The room became silent. "Our employees work in offices, factories, research facilities, and public spaces. Yesterday proved that emergencies don't wait for professionals." One executive nodded. "It's an excellent initiative." Daniel continued. "And create an annual Community Hero Award." "For employees?" "For anyone." He paused. "People who choose courage over convenience." The board unanimously approved the proposal. Meanwhile, Brightmart's crisis only continued growing. News anchors across the country replayed the security footage every hour. One commentator said, "She didn't hesitate for a second." Another added, "Instead of honoring her, they fired her." Hashtags flooded. Social media. Hashtag hire Maya. Hashtag kindness matters. Hashtag do the right thing. Customers began canceling loyalty memberships. Several former Brightmart employees shared stories online about managers who prioritized policy over humanity. The company's public image deteriorated by the hour. Late that afternoon, Brightmart CEO held another emergency meeting. "We need to fix this." One executive replied carefully, "It may already be too late. What do you recommend? Publicly apologize and offer Maya her job back." Another executive quietly added, "With a promotion." The CEO nodded. "Do it immediately." At that very moment, Maya and Evelyn were sitting at their small kitchen table eating homemade vegetable soup. The apartment felt peaceful. Then someone knocked on the door. When Maya opened it, two sharply dressed executives stood outside holding flowers and a leather folder. "Miss Johnson." "Yes. We're from Brightmart Corporate." Maya's smile disappeared. "We'd like to apologize." She invited them inside. One executive spoke sincerely. "Your termination never should have happened." The second placed the folder on the table. "Our company would like to officially reinstate you." Maya remained silent. "We're also offering a promotion to Customer Experience Supervisor." He slid another document forward, along with a significant salary increase. Evelyn looked at Maya. The apartment became completely quiet. For someone who had worried about paying rent only yesterday, the offer seemed unbelievable. But Maya didn't answer immediately. Instead, she asked one simple question. "If another employee leaves their register to save someone's life tomorrow?" The executives exchanged nervous glances. "Will they be fired?" Neither man answered for several seconds. Finally, one admitted, "We're rewriting the policy. Not because it's good publicity. No, because it's the right thing." He nodded slowly. "Yes." Maya appreciated the honesty. "I'll think about it." The executives looked surprised. Most people would have accepted instantly. Instead, Maya politely walked them to the door. After they left, Evelyn smiled. "What are you thinking?" Maya looked out the window. "I'm thinking that getting my old job back isn't the biggest decision I'll have to make." Across town, Daniel Harrison stood in his office, watching the evening news replay the supermarket footage once again. Then he turned to his assistant. "Has Brightmart contacted Maya?" "Yes. They offered her the job back." Daniel smiled slightly. "Good." His assistant looked confused. "You expected that?" "I hoped they would do the right thing." "And if she refuses?" Daniel looked out across the Chicago skyline. "Then perhaps." He paused. It's time someone offered her a future instead of just another job. Neither of them knew that by sunrise, Robert Harrison would make a decision so extraordinary that it would stun the business world and leave Maya wondering whether her life was about to change forever. The next morning, Maya woke up before her alarm. For the first time in weeks, she wasn't waking up because she was afraid of being late for work. She was waking up because she had a decision to make. On the kitchen table were two envelopes. One from Brightmart, one from Harrison Technologies. She had not opened the second one yet. Evelyn watched her granddaughter quietly from across the room. "You've been staring at those papers for 20 minutes. Maya smiled slightly. "I don't know what to do." "Yes, you do." Maya looked up. "What do you mean?" Evelyn took a sip of her coffee. "You've always known what is right. The problem is that doing the right thing is not always easy." Maya looked down at the envelopes. The Brightmart offer was tempting. A better position, more money, security, everything she needed. But something inside her felt different now. She didn't want a reward for saving someone's life. She wanted people to understand why she did it. Later that afternoon, Maya arrived at Harrison Hospital again. This time, she wasn't there as a stranger. She was there as someone Robert Harrison considered a friend. Robert was sitting near the window when she entered. "Ah, there she is." Maya laughed. "You make it sound like I've been missing for years. For someone who changed my life, 2 days feels like years." She sat beside him. "Mr. Harrison." "Robert. Robert, I wanted to thank you." He looked surprised. "Thank me?" "Yes. Because after everything happened, people finally started talking about kindness. Maybe something good came from all of this." Robert smiled. "You still don't realize what makes you different." "What?" "Most people who do something good want everyone to know about it." He pointed at her. "You did something good and went back to work." Maya looked away. "I just didn't want someone to die." And that's exactly why you deserve everything coming your way. Before Maya could respond, Daniel Harrison entered the room. He carried a small folder. I hope I'm not interrupting. Robert smiled. You are. But you're always interrupting. Daniel laughed and sat down. Maya, I wanted to personally give you something. She immediately became cautious. If it's money, I can't accept it. Daniel smiled. I expected you to say that. He opened the folder. Inside was not a check. It was a document. What is this? My father and I created a foundation. Maya looked confused. A foundation? Yes. A program that helps ordinary people who step forward during emergencies. People who act when everyone else is standing still. Daniel continued. And we want you to be the first person involved. Maya shook her head. I'm not qualified. Daniel looked at her. You performed CPR when trained professionals were minutes away. You showed courage under pressure. You showed compassion. He paused. Those are qualifications that can't be taught. Maya didn't know what to say. For years, she had felt invisible. Just another employee behind a register. Just another person trying to survive. But now powerful people were telling her that the thing she considered normal was actually extraordinary. That evening, Maya finally opened the envelope from Harrison Technologies. Inside was an offer. Not a donation. Not a gift. An opportunity. A position as Director of Community Outreach for the new Harrison Foundation. The salary was more than she had ever earned. The responsibility was enormous. But the title wasn't what shocked her. It was one sentence written at the bottom. You were hired because of who you are, not because of what happened. Maya read that sentence again and again. Because for the first time in her life, someone saw her value before seeing her circumstances. Meanwhile, Brightmart continued facing the consequences of its mistake. Richard Collins was called into another meeting. This time, he knew exactly what was coming. The CEO looked disappointed. Richard, do you understand why this situation became so serious? Richard remained silent. Because you forgot the most important part of customer service. What is that? Customers are people. The words hit harder than he expected. After 20 years of managing stores, Richard realized he had become so focused on rules that he forgot the reason those rules existed. He wasn't fired immediately. Instead, he was required to attend leadership training and work with employees he had once ignored. For the first time in years, he had to listen. And listening was something he had forgotten how to do. 3 months later, the city looked different. Brightmart had changed its emergency response policies. Employees were encouraged to help people in danger. The company launched a nationwide campaign about compassion in customer service. But the biggest change happened inside Maya. She no longer walked with her head down. She no longer apologized for taking up space. She had learned something important. Being kind did not make her weak. It made her powerful. 1 year after the incident, Harrison Technologies hosted a special event. Hundreds of people gathered in a large auditorium. Doctors, teachers, firefighters, volunteers, ordinary people who had done extraordinary things. Maya stood on stage beside Robert Harrison. The audience applauded. Robert took the microphone. 1 year ago, I was lying on a supermarket floor, and the world was passing me by. The room became silent. Then one person stopped. He looked at Maya. She didn't know my name. She didn't know my wealth. She didn't know my position. She only knew one thing. I needed help. Robert smiled. And that was enough. The audience stood and applauded. Maya wiped away tears. After the ceremony, a young girl approached her. Are you the cashier who saved that man? Maya smiled. I used to be. The girl tilted her head. What are you now? Maya looked around at all the people whose lives had been touched by simple acts of kindness. She smiled. I'm someone who learned that one small choice can change everything. Years later, people would still remember the story of Maya Johnson. Not because she saved a billionaire. Not because she received a better job. Not because she became successful. They remembered her because, in a world where many people looked away, one woman chose to care. And sometimes, the smallest act of kindness is the beginning of the biggest transformation. Because you never know, the person you stop to help today might be the reason your own life changes tomorrow.